it's so helpful to be like, oh, that's what's happening. Okay, cool. Let me roll with this for the next. Like, that's a really cool thing about astrology is you can literally look at dates and be like, okay, this is going to shift in a month and a half. And so let me just, ride with it.
Welcome to the Mindful Method podcast, where we don't just fill your ears, we fill your mind with the tools to enhance your emotional and physical reality. I'm your host, Jordana Sade, here to guide you on this journey of the body-brain connection and help you take your power back to create the life you've always wanted. So grab a seat, because class is in session and our method is on the syllabus. Here at the Mindful Clinic, we're not just changing your mind, we're changing your life. One mindful moment at a time. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Mindful Method podcast. I'm so excited to bring this episode to you guys. I have a very special guest with me. This is Nicole. I'll let her introduce herself, but I'll just tell you a little bit about how we met. I ended up doing this, I think it was a new moon or
It was a full moon.
full moon circle with an old friend of mine, and Nicole was facilitating it. And everything that she said, I was like, bang on. Like, I was just literally, it was a soul connection immediately. And I just knew I had to bring her to you guys. She's also read my chart and she's just incredible. She's a beautiful, beautiful human. So Nicole, thank you for being on the podcast and welcome to the Mindful Method.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I love it. It was really magical how we met. I do remember when we first connected and you kind of were sitting right beside me and that Cancer moon connects to all that Capricorn in my chart. So it's definitely divinely led. And yeah, no, I'm so happy to be here, talk about consciousness, A Course in Miracles, astrology, whatever you want to get into. I'm here for it.
Love it. Okay. So the first thing that I want to ask is just tell us a little bit about yourself and then kind of like what led you to this path of, astrology and A Course in Miracles and everything that you do.
For sure. So full name Nicole DeVal, and I started building a platform in 2021 during the pandemic called Oracle City. I would say my astrology journey started really young. Like at 21, I remember I had a couple friends in sort of that world, and I did a reading with this very seasoned grown man astrologer, and he sat me down and looked at my chart, and he was like, "Listen, you're 100% meant to be in the entertainment, like actress drama business." And I remember just crying. Like he told me this like truth that I had never heard before, and I just really, it landed with me so strongly. And I think to have someone look at your chart and be able to tell you so much of who you are without saying anything, and it being so validating, was like, oh, this is quite interesting to me. So for many years, it was just a lot of self-study. Like it was just like, oh, I'm interested in this transit, or like, oh, this is happening, or oh, I'm interested in that part of my chart. And just really like noticing the patterns. So that was my journey with astrology. And then through the pandemic, started doing like ceremonies for women and really got on this like spiritual path of understanding, oh, like sound bath meditation and contrast therapy and breath work and meditation. And so I just, it started to evolve. And then A Course in Miracles came into my life many years ago. It's funny, I bought the book and never cracked it. And then 4 years ago, I started reading it. And they really say once you crack A Course in Miracles, it'll never leave you. You keep coming back to it over and over again. And I remember 2 years ago, I kind of started going deeper. And then this year, there was like a spirit-led voice saying, like, you really need to take this text in. And many of us know Marianne Williamson, who, has a massive collection of literature, but also wrote A Return to Love. And it's like a foundational reading for a lot of people. And yeah, I've been really into that study for the last 8-9 months, and just in those few months, how much has transformed my life and my emotional world, and understanding my own mind and the power of spirit, and how powerful God and love and consciousness can be. And so I really believe that will be such a big part of my career. But it's all about embodying it and then also sharing it. So I think that kind of wraps up where I'm at right now.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thank you. That was super clear. And, the thing that I love about the way that you kind of positioned all of that was, and very similar to my story, it all just kind of came out of, curiosity and like little, intuitive hits rather than like, I'm going to school to become a lawyer. Like
Yeah.
it's this like it's just like a soul journey that you go on and then you learn these things. And especially when you were facilitating, like obviously divine alignment, but like everything that you said, I like really, really needed to hear that day. It was I
Yeah.
worst day, and I
Yeah.
like just such a like crazy situation. And the way that it landed with me was just
Mm,
so like timely and perfect. And I think that like there, when we think bigger, like there is this energy of like, okay, like I've learned this information, and then we kind of draw the people that we need to. Because I've,
100%.
Bruna's done many full moon circles. This is the first one I've ever been to.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like
Interesting.
this crazy kind of perfect
Oh,
divine.
yeah.
So, but yeah, thank you so much for sharing that with me. Where I think I'd
Yes.
like to start with you is because one of the first things you said when we were talking about astrology, I loved the way that you described what astrology really is. Because
Mhm.
I'm going to be honest, like I've really gotten to the place in my life where I'm just like shameless about it. I mean, I think, and I like, I'll meet somebody, but like, Kate, what's your sign? Like, and
A
I'm
hundred
like,
percent.
that's the first thing I want to know. Exactly what time were you born? But there
Yes.
are a lot of people
Obsessive.
that are listening that like don't necessarily still think it's a little bit woo woo, still think
For
it's
sure.
so can you just explain like exactly what astrology is and like why should we care about it?
For sure. I think like some starter points are let's fact check, okay? Like the planets in space are real. The planets have the ability, if we just consider the moon in general, like the planet of the moon will literally move ocean tides, okay? I remember being in Mexico this year and even just watching the 1 month process of how powerful the moon could pull the ocean further out. And then as it was changing, it would come closer. Okay, so planets have this effect on just like biology and nature in general. So let's just start with the science and the facts that the planets are affecting, our human biology. That's like the first thing. Second, let's go back to history and consider like Babylonian times and Greek mythology that, if you go back to study that this is all documented, it's all imprinted. We're entering an era where ancient practices, because of the rapid pace of technology, we as a human species are so needing ancient practices to be able to even find balance in how quickly things are moving. So if you go to, if you think of herbalism or you think of traditional Chinese medicine or, all of these things that we're doing to just get ourselves back to a place of alignment, astrology is a part of it, right? So we want to consider that when you were born, it was a snapshot in the sky of where everything was placed at a certain point. Now we go back to Greek mythology and we take archetypal stories and the idea of mythology, and it becomes nuanced. And then you go, okay, well, they started doing this in 15, 16, 1700s, and then started to study the patterns of the nuance of planets on people. Like it's been studied. So it's not really whether it's fact or not. It just is. It exists before we ever did as human beings. So astrology being, a snapshot, your cosmic DNA. Sure, I get that might sound woo, and we do have to understand that science and spirituality are equal parts at this point. Like they really are. It is constantly validating. If you look, I saw this quote from an astrologer. She said after 15 years of studying people's charts, she's got her 10,000 hours. She's like, people are their charts. You can't deny it. It's not something that can be denied. So I get it. And I think, the marketing of it has been woo and it has been silly and it's fun and it's playful and it's sort of how it's approached. But you can look at Stephen Forrest, who's been an astrologer for well over 33 years, has a waiting list until he dies. Like he won't even be able to do all of the clients that he has on his waiting list because he will die before it's possible. There are astrologers out there that take this very seriously. You can consider billionaires or politicians, people who have astrologers on their panel and are like, listen, you should be making this pivot at this certain time, or this is happening at this certain time. And, I remember there's also a quote online that's like, billionaires use astrologers, millionaires don't. So yeah, I mean, it's completely up to anyone to make that choice, but we're also seeing, the rise of human design, the rise of the Enneagram, the rise of the gene keys. Any of those are valid. It's just whether astrology is for you or not.
Yeah. Oh
Hmm.
gosh, that was so well explained. Thank you so much. So I don't come at me anymore because I'm always like, it's my Virgo, it's my this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I love it.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. And I know even too when you read my chart, like I just felt so seen. I had a really similar experience
Yeah,
that actually brought me into spirituality. And it was not necessarily with astrology, but it was with an intuitive. And she was just
yeah,
have star energy. Like you are meant to be seen. And I was in
yeah.
the biggest depression of my life. And I was this like childhood like dream of mine just like came back alive in my mid 20s, and since then like I've just never looked back, and it just like when somebody sees you that way,
Yeah.
it changes everything, so you're just
And
like,
like,
that's me.
yes, and as a culture, we're so disconnected from any essence of magic. And like, it's okay to allow that like magic into your life and use it. And I think a big part of my chart is reminding people to have play and like that divinity of your inner child. Like that's a big part of what I'm here to represent as well. And I think as we grow and evolve, that does get shut down just because we have so much that we have going on. And astrology is magical, and it's okay to allow a little bit of magic into your life. And I think people are like, oh, the woo is because it's a disregard for the magic or the miracles that are possible. And that's just kind of where we're at as a culture, and that's unfortunate. But I think there's a massive rise for it, and a really excitable market. And so yeah, it's great, especially with Pluto entering Aquarius now, finally, as of November, for the next like 15 years. Like Aquarius represents the concept of astrology, so it's going to get bigger.
Okay, so let's talk about this then. So I'm an Aquarius rising.
Yes, okay, amazing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So like, can you give us a little bit of an overview of like what's going on in the sky right now? Because I'm just
Yeah.
gonna tell you, like, since the retrograde that happened like throughout August, it's literally just been a shit show. Like, and I
Okay.
like literally like, and I feel like I'm getting like whiplash all the time.
Yeah.
Signs are the same, and once you're like tuned into it, you can't ignore it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
what's
yeah.
going on right now, and like, what are some things that we kind of need to pay attention to?
Yeah, I love this. I would say the two biggest things that I would touch on are one, Pluto re-entered Capricorn for the very last time at basically 29 degrees just after Mercury retrograde. So let's consider Pluto, right? This planet of transformation, upheaval is here to completely shed everything that's not working anymore, and enter into the next. So when Pluto entered Capricorn back in 2009, it basically retransformed how we do business. Okay. So it went into, and let's look from 2009 to 2024. What did Pluto do? It basically created the ability to do online business, like business completely transformed. Also, when Pluto entered in 2009, what happened in the US? The housing market completely crashed. That was when the US just went down into flames with the housing market. So Pluto is this planet that we feel it as human beings. We'll feel it when it hits, and then it's a very long run. So if you think 2009 to 2024, multiple years, it is now in the retrograde. It's in the Aquarian experience, but it has one last transit for us to go into Capricorn one last time. And then it'll go direct October 11th. And then finally we'll be in Aquarius for the next 15 years as of November. So when it does this last little upheaval, we need to look in our lives at the Capricorn themes. So business, hierarchy, our clients, entrepreneurship, the system, institutions, our structure, right? Like it's all about structure. So if it's doing this last little retrograde in the idea of us in structure, our structure is just getting shaken up one last time to be like, I hope you've learned your lesson. Like, I hope you're seeing what you need to see, so that as we enter into the Aquarian revolution for the next 15 years in transformation, we're a lot clearer. So we feel Pluto transits as human beings. And when you have a Pluto transit in your own chart, which you will experience in your first house, we feel it. It is just no bullshit, like changing the game, dusting off everything that doesn't work. You'll never be the same type transit. Okay. So that's one. The second is we are now in eclipse season. So we usually feel the nuance of eclipse about 2 weeks before the actual experience of it, and then 2 weeks after. So eclipse season is this inevitable realignment of you can't do the same thing, honey. Like, you just can't. And there's no arguing with me. Like, eclipse season is like, there's no arguing with me. Like, it's going this way. The last time eclipse season happened, my ass wanted to stay in Mexico as long as I wanted. What happened to me? I cut my foot, got a crazy infection in my leg on the the new moon in Aries solar eclipse, set my ass back to Canada. Like, eclipse season doesn't listen to what you want. So it's shaping us to get into this place of, are you listening? Because if you're not, I'm going to move things. So we have a full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces, which could be very emotional, very ethereal. It rules like illusion. It can also, on the shadow side of Pisces, rule deception, but it's also like meditation, transcendence, consciousness, expansion. So we're in eclipse season. So I would say that those are like the biggest things, is that we have Pluto retrograde and we have eclipse season happening. Saturn's also retrograde. Uranus went retrograde. So we're just kind of in this like period, like realign, relook, rephase, reintegrate, like all of the, let me just go backwards before I can go forwards. Then when January 2025 hits, it'll feel a little bit more like fluid for everyone.
Thank God for that. Because personally, I just feel like I've been in this like a place for a while. And then I was like, oh, it's fine. It's when I get back from Italy, it's all going to shift. And then like I came back from Italy, it's like, nope, whoops.
No, yeah. And like astrology is such a big part of it. And your own chart has a lot to do with it. Like, where's Pluto retrograding in Capricorn for you? So if you're an Aquarius rising, it's in your 12th house. It would mostly be in your 12th house. So it's retrograded back into the area of like your unconscious and like your true desires and, you know, the things that you might fear a little bit. And so we have to like also look at the area of our life that certain things are happening. But yeah, I mean, Pluto doesn't play.
Yeah.
So. And that's, I've been telling people, you know, if you're planning any major projects, sure, like we have to move forward with our life with certain things, but a great launch date is anytime after October 11th, because then Pluto's direct and like we're like, okay, we're doing this. So
yeah. And I'm so glad that you mentioned that the eclipses, you feel the energy like 2 weeks before, because I've been feeling so much anxiety and like literally,
yes,
and I'm like, if the full moon's not yet, guys, because I'm Cancer moon, right? So I'm
right,
moon every time it's like full moon.
Yeah,
like that's my thing. Yeah. So I'm just gonna blame it on the eclipse, but it does literally feel like we've all had whiplash for the past say 4 or 5 months.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, like I'm here for it. I have to be, you know, mindful that it's a nuanced experience for everyone, and it's so different for everyone, and it depends on like what's going on in your own personal chart. But yeah, I think like it's so helpful to be like, oh, that's what's happening. Okay, cool. Let me roll with this for the next, like, that's a really cool thing about astrology is you can literally look at dates and be like, okay, this is going to shift in a month and a half. And so let me just, you know, ride with it.
Before I go into the other stuff, can you tell us a little bit about like what our sun, moon, and rising means?
Yeah, okay. So your sun sign is the day you were born. It's the season that you were born in. So I was born January 17th during Capricorn season. You were born, remind me, September 20th, Virgo season. So our sun sign is all about the consciousness that we're meant to be expanded into. So a lot of people will say, you know, I don't really feel like my sun sign, usually a little younger in life. And that's because in this lifetime, you are meant to embody this over your life. So, you know, as a Virgo, you're here to stand in this like beautiful sovereign expression. You're focused on wellness. Health is important to you. Routine is who you are. You know, you're sort of this green witch. So you need to be connected to nature. Like you're very analytical. You're methodical. Like that's who your expression is in this lifetime. And it's about mastery over time, right? Or Capricorn, like here to build business, here to be like big daddy energy, here to be like understand hierarchy, here to, you know, just stand in the truth of like this Capricorn essence. I haven't mastered that yet, but I'm getting there. So people need to understand that our sun signs are like the embodiment and the consciousness of who we are through life. It's not always how we're always feeling or like what it is. It's like our expression in this lifetime. Your moon sign is how you feel. It's your intimate feelings. It's your unconscious feelings. It's sort of how you're reactive or responsive to. So if your moon's in Cancer, you know, that's the experience of I feel everything. My moon's in Gemini. It's like I think about everything. So it's like who we are behind closed doors doors and how we feel the safest. And so more people will feel like their moon sign, because it's like, that's like our home, right? Like our moon is who is our home. And so our expression can be more connected to that. So yeah, it rules like your emotions, your thinking, your mind, your unconscious, and who you are behind closed doors with others. And then your ascendant, which is also known as your rising sign, is how people experience you firsthand. It's how you kind of take care of your physicality. It's actually who you are on a physical level. And it's the house of self. So they say like, by the time you hit 40, 45, because your sun is now embodied, the rising side starts to fall away because you're standing more in like who you are. But that rising side is a lot of like physicality, your day-to-day thinking, like how you're kind of moving through the world, and also how people are perceiving you. Like their first impression of you is sort of what your rising is. Like I'll meet a Cancer rising, I'm like, are you a water sign? They're like, no, I'm actually a Taurus, which is earth. But because they're Cancer rising and I'm meeting you for the first time, your Cancer is quite embodied. So yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, perfect. Because I remember when I first pulled my rising sign as Aquarius, I had a friend who was really into astrology at the time, and she was like, "That's shocking to me." But she
Yeah, it is kind of shocking.
and because Aquariuses are a little bit like aloof, a little bit like they're like a little removed and detached, and like, and I'm not like
Yeah.
I'm very Cancer, like I'm very like warm and lovey and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
flowy, and so
Totally,
yeah.
totally.
So, yeah, that's really helpful. Okay. So you mentioned something really important, and this is one of the reasons why I love astrology. It's also
Hmm.
kind of to like give it up to God in a way, to, blame it on the planets, because then you
Yeah.
feel like so personal all the time. It's not like I'm a failure. It's like, oh, I'm just going through a shit.
Totally, totally. I mean, I went through a Sun conjunct Pluto transit and it nearly killed me. So, and then when I realized what I was going through, I was like, oh, okay. And then as soon as it changed, things changed. So that was wild. So I get it. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, right?
100%.
Totally. So, what I love about what you said is that it kind of allows us to take a step back and like to view life and our experiences as this third party perspective. And I
Yeah.
know that like the Course in Miracles and a lot of what you had talked about on that full moon was about the ego and like versus
Hmm.
spirit. So, do you want to just like start diving into like the ego in itself and versus
Totally.
what that experience looks like?
For sure. Yeah. So, I think A Course in Miracles is a lifelong study, but from what I'm really taking, from my beginning touchings of like the last year, is this discernment about two irreconcilable experiences, right? So we've got love, God, consciousness, like you are source, you are everything you've ever wanted, you are completely perfect, whole divine, you are fully forgiven, like you are just everything that you've ever wanted, to ego, which is the polarity, right? Because everything is polarity, and that's what we need to remember, is that the ego's not bad. It's just like loves the sun, and ego is like the middle of the night. So ego in our own experience has no real desire for us to be this like love consciousness. It's like, I want to keep you separate. I want to keep you away. I want you to know, I want you to believe that you're the best. And it's this experience of, it just wants to take you out. Like the ego has no desire for you to be great. It actually wants to keep you completely isolated and separate and like away from everyone else. And like, it's just the complete opposite of love, right? But they also say like love is so expansive, and there's really no words to even describe it. There actually is an opposite. But to start to discern the ego mind, which is every nagging, mean, overwhelming, anxious, disconnected, angry, judgmental thought that you have, that's the ego mind, versus the Holy Spirit, the godlike mind of, I know, I feel, I'm connected, and this constant discernment between the two, right? And this navigation between the two. And the deeper that you do that, the more you realize, holy shit, like there's nothing wrong with this over here, but this is just not the truth of who I am. And constantly, it's not combat or mitigating, because love is not that way, but to be like, no, like I'm not allowing these thoughts anymore, because I know that that's just not the truth. And so ego and spirit are kind of always this like back and forth, but obviously the spirit is so much more powerful. They say the ego comes first always. The ego is always going to come first, but that, Holy Spirit, love consciousness, and the truth of a God, like a godlike mind, is it's just so powerful.
Yeah. If ego runs our like desires, like let's say,
Hmm.
let's just hypothetically talking.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
hypothetically, like I want to like double my income. So that's like an ego thought.
I wouldn't say it's necessarily a ego thought. I would say it's a self-willed thought. So
Okay.
what A Course in Miracles teaches is the questioning of, do you believe that you know better than like the highest truth, right? So when we like set out to have these goals and we set out to double our income and we set out to buy the house and we set out to marry this person, and like that's all self-will run by the ego as well, for sure, right? Because it's like constant, like let's go more, yes, yes, more. What happens is at some point in every human life we're like, this isn't working, like something's not working. And it can be a certain area, right? And it's sort of that moment where it's like I kind of just surrender. And that's the experience of remembering that we don't actually know better than like God or source or higher consciousness knows for us. So what A Course in Miracles teaches is to allow the constant surrender of like, I'm going to let you lead the game and I'm going to let you come through me, and I'm going to start making choices from that way. So it's like, okay, you want me to take this on. Okay, I'm in this, now I'm saving this money. Oh, you want me to take that money and put it into this? Okay, I got you, right? Because I'm now listening. But if I go out and be like, I want this and I'm gonna go get it, it becomes all confusing and all overwhelming because we think we know better. So it's not that having goals, dreams, and desires is wrong, because God wants whatever you want for yourself, ultimately, like truth. But it's also the like washing away of consciousness is going to shape you to your highest expression. Your highest expression in certain ways is not what you want from the ego mind. Like your highest expression is like is in some ways something you've never even thought, dreamed, or desired, and it comes through you. So yeah, it's like, this idea of goals and dreams and desires, that's all good and well. And some of those will absolutely manifest if it's the truth of who you are. And some of those will be let go because you'll realize it's not the truth of who I am. And so it's, yeah. And where the ego comes into play is sort of this, okay, I want to double my income. Oh, I haven't doubled my income. Therefore, I'm never going to get it. I'm worthless. Oh, it's never going to happen for me. That's the ego mind. Or like, work harder, more, faster. Like, you need this. That's the ego mind. And so it's not that we can't have our dreams, because that's just like who we are as humans. But I think it's just more about allowing source to lead us. But that's been the most revolutionary experience for me, is that, holy shit, like when I let God move through me, like my life is the best. It's like so fucking rad. And I'm meeting the coolest people and the coolest things are happening. And like, I'm not in control of this anymore. It's like fun.
Yeah, it's also terrifying for a
It's
lot of people.
it's so interesting. Yeah. I'm like, and I guess that's my work, is to be like, how do I not make that scary?
Yeah.
Because it's like so cool once you're like on the ride.
Hi, babes. I am so excited to talk to you about my signature program, the Mindful Method. This is the exact same method that I have been using with hundreds of successful clients to help you heal your relationship to food, to increase confidence, and to lose weight without dieting or killing yourself at the gym. If you're sick of not feeling like your best self, if you're sick of promising yourself that you'll start again on Monday, if you're sick of going on restrictive diets only to gain back the weight, I can tell you right now that if you gained it back, it did not work. You know what's healthy and what's not. You do. You just continue to choose the unhealthy option anyways. And a meal plan will not solve this issue. There is no amount of restriction or discipline or willpower that is going to stop you from self-sabotaging. The body follows the mind. Imagine a life where you don't have to think about what you can or can't eat. Imagine a life where you feel confident in all of your clothes, where every day in every way your body rebalances and you lose all of the weight so you find the truest, healthiest version of yourself. Imagine never having to start again on Monday. This is what happens when you focus on transforming the brain so weight loss is effortless. The body follows the mind, and it's time you actually get to the root cause of your issue. If you are ready to transform and find the truest, healthiest version of you without letting go of your favorite foods, I invite you to fill out the application in my bio. And if you're a good fit, we'll be in touch soon. Back to regular programming.
So how do we listen?
That's such a good question because it's so different for everyone. I think like stillness, time to be quiet, slowing down, really starting to discern that voice in your own head, because like we really do know the truth. Like when we start to discern the voice, we're like, that's not true. Like what I'm saying is not true for me. That's a complete ego experience. Meditation is kind of up to us. It's how we decide to do it. It can be a walking meditation, it can be a sitting meditation, it can be a workout meditation. But I think finding some sort of spaciousness to slow down is like number one. Finding teachers that you really believe in. I think finding community. So I think that's like number one. I think commitment. It becomes a commitment to wanting, really A Course in Miracles is about peace. Like that's the number one thing it teaches. It teaches peace. So if you need to ask yourself, do I actually want peace? Because a lot of us don't really know if we do, right? At the end of the day, like we'd rather have the chaos and it's a timing system for everyone. Like you have to be ready to want to listen, right? It's like when you're in a relationship for so many years and it's just not working, you got to be ready to go have a mediator, be like, let me ask you some questions and like listen to one another. So everything comes down to readiness. I think when it comes to like, you have to want to listen.
Great answer. I think when I was starting this, and I'm definitely nowhere, not in a comparison way, but like definitely not as like spirit led as you are. But when I started this process, the hardest part for me was being able to discern like what is my own voice and like what is like my truth and what is like a desire coming from ego. And I think that you just kind of nailed it. Correct me if I'm wrong, nailed it perfectly. Like and actually this is what I took from you in that full moon circle. I was like, I just asked myself, like, is this situation bringing me peace? And if it's not, then it's like not mine.
Exactly.
It's like, okay, like now I can actually let that go.
Yeah.
One part of it's easy when we're talking about like reaching a goal, right? We're like, oh yeah, I
Right.
want income, but like how does somebody like let go of a heartbreak or like let go of like these are like it's so hard to like let go of, or even just like let go of like why they didn't get that job or whatever, because it means it like the ego makes it mean something about you. But yeah, anyways, but then if we literally lead into peace and we're like, okay, this isn't bringing me peace and it wasn't for me, then we can be a little bit more open to like the intuitive like guidance that would come for the next thing that is for us. But when we're like holding on to all the past shit, it like doesn't come through,
Absolutely. That's like one of the coolest things moving through studying A Course in Miracles. I'll touch on a couple of things. So two major principles are forgiveness and alleviation of guilt. So I remember reading it and it basically says like, oh, by a snap of a finger, your past is atoned. Like everything up into this moment you're free. Like you're free, you are forgiven. Like it's not real. And that's a massive thing to sort of digest. But to take that in like in a snap of a finger, you are fully forgiven because there is no abandonment. You're not reprimanded. There is no like nail me to the cross. Like there is none of that, because as source consciousness, it doesn't matter what you do. At the end of the day, you're forgiven for everything that's ever happened. And to come into that expression is like, holy shit. Like I might have to have a couple conversations, or maybe God will put someone in front of me to be like, hey, I'm really sorry. Right. But everything's atoned, like up until this moment. So your past is done. And then the alleviation of guilt is this experience of there's just no benefit to it in any moment. So to hold guilt is to say like, I'm not worthy of my truth, like to say I'm guilty, or like because it becomes this dance of if you're guilty, I'm guilty, and neither one of those are true. And so to have that freedom it's massive. But yeah, these two principles of like forgiveness and the alleviation of guilt starts to really like atone. Okay, this just isn't working because it's not what God wants for us. Like that, like, and that becomes like a higher understanding of of like, okay, so I'm here to live a high expression, and this isn't what the truth of it is. So it's like very simple, but it's not easy, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
I know exactly what you mean. In the full moon circle, you were like, there's these three steps. I can't remember if it was like three steps to peace or like three steps to
Yeah.
forgiveness or like it was like, but it was around the topic of forgiveness.
Yeah, I don't know if I remember either. I don't remember, but
Okay.
I don't remember what it was.
I
Yeah.
repeated it for like 3 days because it was so profound. And then like now it's
Really?
gone. Yeah.
Oh, no, no, it's probably like embodied in your brain. So you like, yeah. I can't remember what it was though.
No, that's perfect. It's fine. For people who are listening who like maybe you can explain this, maybe you can't, but like what is really God consciousness?
Mm.
Because I think that there's a lot of like religion kind of gets in the way of like
Yeah.
believe in God. Is it a Jesus thing? Is it like
Yeah, yeah.
is this like God consciousness?
I mean, it's definitely not something I don't think anyone can put in words, and I'm not an expert to even answer that. But I think if you could break it down to the most simple form, it's like, it's just I am. Its most basic level, it's just I am. And I am is just this purity of I just am. Right? In every moment, I just am. And this consciousness is all encompassing, completely pure. Like, so it's just, it's something we can't even really put into words. It's the truth. It's centered. It's patient. It's compassionate. It's pure. It's light. It's openness. It's forgiveness. It's empathy. Like, it's everything that you truly are before like the ego and all the layers of life kind of came in. But yeah, I'm definitely not an expert to answer that question, and I'm still learning and experiencing it myself. I think at the purest form is kind of just remembering, like, I am. That was how it all first started, and then everything else kind of like came into play. I guess the way like A Course in Miracles describes it is just that it's almost like the overseer of your soul, but that is also you, right? And so like God is not outside of ourselves. It's to learn that we are the same consciousness. It's not, even though like we have the experience of like prayer or giving it up to something bigger, and that can feel external, which is natural and normal. But I think with time we start to realize, no, it's I am, it's me, it's I am consciousness, I am God consciousness, I am love, I am everything that is, you know, this concept of oneness, which is like a whole, like, you know, not even something I feel educated enough to speak on. But hopefully the direction I think like we're going in when it comes to the awakening, at least. You know, our planet's kind of messy, but
Yeah. I actually was just doing a deep dive into the universal law of oneness. And I recorded a podcast with somebody on Monday, actually, who she wasn't talking about that, but we were talking about like manifesting money or something, just like,
yeah,
just very like tangible. And she was just like, you know, like we're just like pieces of stardust. And like when you come into this world, like you don't have to like ask for air. Like you just know how
yeah,
it's available to you. And so we're born like fully abundant, and we're born as like one, like we are a part of Mother Earth that gives us all of our resources that,
everything.
you know, and so,
Yes,
and then also too, if we go one step further, it's like when we look around and we start judging other people. So if we look at like, I don't know, like a porn star and like judge her, and like judge her, like, you know, scrutinize or criticize, versus like we look at Jeff Bezos and we're like, oh, we'll never have that kind of money, or he's greedy or whatever.
totally,
As soon as we make judgment, like when we
absolutely.
recognize that we actually are all one, the porn star, and we are Jeff Bezos, and like
Yes,
everything is possible. It's just like I
yes.
had this like wow moment the other day. I was like, oh my God.
That's like, I love that you said that, because that's actually another huge principle in, and that may have been one of the steps around the steps of forgiveness, is like letting go of all judgment. And
Yeah.
that's the ego mind. So
Yeah.
the ego mind is judgment, right? So
Yeah.
like when you start to navigate your own thoughts, you realize how much you're judging and how much your judgment is holding you back from everything you've ever wanted, everything that you are, everything that's great, everything that's amazing. Like you're the reason, right?
Yeah.
Like you're the reason. Your judgment is the reason. Everything you're judging is the reason that you don't have the life that you want, right? So it's like start to like really listen to the judgment and let love infuse the change and watch things transform. It's so true. The judgment is everything. I love that you said that, because the alleviation of judgment is such a big part of our healing, and we don't even realize how much we're doing it in every moment.
Yeah.
Like it can be the littlest thing, and it's not even conscious or in the idea of like projection. We're just like doing it all the time. because it's how the ego mind can keep us like, it's how the ego mind keeps us separate. Like even if we see someone that's overweight, right? Like we're not judging. It's just this, oh, like this person is way heavier, or I see a homeless person and like my mind will be like, oh God, like what happened to you, right? And now I'm like, God bless you, brother. Like I hope that you find your way, or like, you're fucking beautiful. Like just constantly changing these judgmental thoughts. And watch your life transform when you start to navigate your judgment, because you see it everywhere, and then you start to see it everywhere and you're like, holy shit, our whole collective consciousness on a mental level is so distorted. We are so distorted in the way we're thinking.
So true, because when I think about my clients that like really struggle with releasing the weight, they are the most critical people
Of themselves. Yeah.
I mean, of course, of themselves, but also of others. Like I have one client who doesn't like, she's like the kindest woman I've ever met. Like she's
Yeah.
so warm and kind and like lovely and nice to everybody. But she always has to look like perfect. And then
Right.
everybody in her family also has to look perfect. And when they
This
don't look
ego.
perfect, and it's just like, and then when I was like, actually, I was talking to her the other day and she was like, when you see like a thin man with a big lady, and I'm like, do you see how often you are judging though?
Yeah.
And when I
Yeah.
really like, when we kind of took off that veil, she like, the first thought she has about anybody is criticism. And it's not because she's not a good person. Like she's actually one of the best humans I've ever met in my life. It's just like that automatic thought that we aren't even
Yes.
tapped into. But that's actually the thing that's keeping her weight on, because
Absolutely. 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 100%. So it's like this navigation of how do we heal those thoughts constantly? Because that's the work. It's like every hour of every day, like what am I thinking? And how am I asking? And how am I like calling it in? Because it then becomes the work to like have to transform those thoughts. And it's wild because, for so long, I think I identified, because the Course in Miracles talks a lot about like the ego, the spirit, which is all sort of the mental and the mind body, and then starts to help you realize the physical body and how we identify in our physical selves. Like that's just, as humans, we do that, but we can't, like, and I said this on my stories the other day, it's like the mind can heal the body, but the body can't heal the mind. So like, which one's more powerful here, right? Like, which one's more powerful? And so which one do we need to focus on first? And really, yeah, the judgment and the criticism is wild. It's absolutely wild out there. So when you can start to shift that, which takes, it takes time to really start to change that. Yeah. But I find like the study of ACIM has really like precipitated that forward for me. Yeah. And I'm so much nicer to myself. And that's been so great to see that transform fast.
I actually like put this into practice because I was like learning about this. I heard somewhere it was like, if you want to stop hating yourself, like stop criticizing others. Oh, I'm just gonna try it out. I was like in the bathroom. I was in school at the time, and like this girl walked in, and she looked so like she was like her hair was disheveled and whatever. And I was just like thinking about how like I was like, oh, can't believe she rolled out of bed like that. Like that was like my first thought, and then I immediately had to like switch and reframe to like, I really like the color of her sweater.
Yes.
And
yes.
As soon as I gave her, like not gave her, but like as soon as I reframed to something like positive, I felt so much better about myself.
Totally.
So it is kind of a selfish thing too, right? Like it's like like the not selfish, but like the outcome is self-fulfilling because you actually shift the way you see and think about yourself by doing
yes. But what ultimately it is to love another means to love myself, right? If we really like break it down, it's like, yo, when I see you, I see me, right? Like we're not here doing this in vacuums. Like nothing matters without everyone else, right? So it's like soon as but it's true.
Whoa.
It's
so true. Nothing matters without anyone else.
Exactly. So it's like, if I love you and I give you love, like I ultimately love myself. And so that's the whole point of community. And I think we also live in this era where teachers and people who are building things, we really do have to remember, how do I love you? How do I give you what you need ultimately, which is like true, so that I can ultimately like become my highest expression. Because that's the love versus ego experience, is to like give. So one of the lines in A Course in Miracles is to have all, give all, Like to have everything, give everything away. So yeah, no, you're right. Like as soon as I identify something great about you, I feel better about me,
Yeah.
you know?
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And it's instant. Like,
Yeah,
I will
absolutely.
say that like if I'm not actively practicing it, the judgment come like I can tell when I'm being judgmental because I'll also not like myself that day.
Yeah, a
So,
hundred
and
percent.
then I just need to switch the narrative.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, so I think the top like three topics that I talk about on this podcast are probably like obviously health, love, and money. Like
Yeah,
three main pillars. Like what do we all really want other than
yeah,
peace?
yeah,
Of course.
yeah.
Because those things we think are going to bring us peace when they're not.
Right.
But so let's just kind of shift back to astrology for a second. If somebody wants to learn about, their like I don't, fortune's not the right word, but like how they can find love or like, experience that, like where are they looking in their chart? What are the planets that are around here?
Yeah, for sure. So when it comes to love, we want to look at our Venus. We want to look at how we love and how we need to be loved. Okay. So for example, my Venus is in Capricorn. So how I love is very traditional. It's very like, I want to go on a date on Wednesday night and I want to do this on Saturday. It's like very structured. It's like Capricorn's very like commitment based. So it's very commitment. It doesn't do fluff. Like my Venus is in Capricorn. So I need to also be loved that way, which means I need to be loved traditionally and I need to be treated with chivalry and I need to, I need you to be on time and I need you to respect my value system. Whereas someone with like maybe a Venus in Gemini is like, I need variety and I need play and I need space and I need lots of communication and I need you to go away for three or 4 days and then come back like whenever you're ready. Like, so we need to look at our Venus. So it's how we love and how we want to be loved. I think our moon sign is a lot of how we need to be emotionally fed, like constantly. So we look at our Venus, we look at our moon sign, and we look at our seventh house. Our seventh house of partnership, marriage, like union, contracts can be helpful, like who we're meant to date or the energy that we're meant to date when it comes to like embodiment of another sign. So those would be like a few ways to look. And we look at the transits too. Like my Venus is conjunct my Saturn, which has made love challenging for me because it's like I want it so badly, but I also put so many boundaries and like discipline and like kind of roadblocks around it. And so my journey is to figure that out. But yeah, I would say Venus, Moon, seventh house are the biggest for love. Money, I always say look at your Jupiter, because wherever your Jupiter is sort of the house where you expand in like abundance. And abundance can mean so many different things for people. But we really want to look at our Jupiter and the area our Jupiter is in. And are we actively doing work in that area? Are we actively like doing something in that area? Because that's like where our money and our abundance really comes in. There's also our part of fortune, because that will also show us where we make money. And that's like it's like an asteroid that not a lot of people look at, but our part of fortune in our chart will show us as well, like an area that's helpful to make money. And then we look at our second house. For cash, material possessions, like second house rules value system, but ultimately it's like that Taurian money, luxury, cash money, like material security, stability. Mm-hmm. So again, Jupiter, part of fortune, second house, usually.
Dating a Taurus right now, and that like
oh, I love that.
I'm like,
yeah, Taurus is like all money. Yeah, it's true. So for health, we look at our sixth house of like our daily routines. Sixth house rules Virgo. That our how we want our sixth house is our daily routines, our wellness. It's our physical well-being. It's like our job. It's our day-to-day living. So we look at our sixth house, and then I say look at your Mars, because health is so much to do with our physical movement and expression. So looking at our Mars and honoring our Mars. So if your Mars is in Pisces, you'll be much more attracted to doing yoga or slow Pilates or going for walks in nature as movement. Whereas like my Mars is in Aries, I need like fiery, like I need to run, I need to cycle, I really need to like get it out. So I look at our Mars for the way that we move. And a lot of people don't know that. And they think like,
I'm gonna look at my Mars, sorry.
yeah, no, do it. A lot of people don't know that because they think, okay, I should be doing what everyone else is doing, but if that doesn't fit who you are, then it's never going to work. So looking at our Mars is really helpful for like physical. Sixth house Mars.
Mine's in Virgo.
Yeah. So like you probably move very well. Like you probably like if you like precision, I would say yoga, Virgo, like strength training for Virgo because they're all about like precision and like detailed movement. So Mars, sixth house, trying to think of what else for health. I would say that those are the big ones.
Okay.
Yeah, your sixth house is a big part of it. Yeah.
Why do you think this, it might be a hard one to answer, but why do you think people experience like pain and suffering and all of those things? If we're all like God consciousness, like, and it's all
Yeah.
you, like, why does it happen?
I think I have a few takes on it. I think we're all born to remember. Like, I think we're all born to have all of these layers to come back. Like, I think ultimately suffering is the polarity to euphoria. So, like, the more suffering you have, the more of an experience you have to touch joy and like greatness. It's just a matter of like if you find it. I also think we're all born at a certain level of consciousness and karma. I believe in reincarnation. So depending on who you were in all these past lives is what you're experiencing now. So that's why being mindful in this life is so important because whatever you're doing is literally the ripple effect of like who you'll become in the next life, and on it goes. I think suffering's like the polarity of peace, and I think like we're all here to experience peace and God. And I think that the more like the lower and the darker it is, the higher the light. And that's like really how I see it. I mean, I've had so much suffering in my life and, I have so much joy and peace as well. So I think it's consciousness. Like there's so many people that are suffering and just don't even realize it.
Yeah, and I think that like, because I was gonna be like, well, how do we like? Because there are people truly who I really believe that your pain is your superpower, like your
Yeah.
superpower. I always say that. Thank God I'm
Yeah.
a fucking addict. Thank God I was fat growing up because like I literally like the all the like I remember I used to like cry every night, like just I want to die, like just don't make. Why did you make me this way?
Yeah.
And now I'm just like, oh my God, if I didn't go through that, I wouldn't do what I do now. I wouldn't be the person I am now. But there was this like, I don't even know exactly where it shifted, but I think you just answered it. But there are people who, go through terrible experiences. Like my experiences is nothing compared to what I've heard.
Of course. Of course.
And like some people, they just don't ever get out of it. Like they can't find the purpose in it or the light. And I really think that it is through that consciousness, like that allows you to be able to like bridge that gap.
Yeah, and I think you're like touching on it really importantly. It's like if you're consciously suffering, you can consciously expand. If you're unconsciously suffering, you can't unconsciously expand. So there's so many people that are like, if I'm aware that there's something wrong here, if I'm aware that this is not right here, then I'm also aware that there's a solution, that there's something greater, that there's something that must change. But if I'm not aware of it and I'm just in the ego, like fully of like, this is shit and like, which is complete unconscious experience. And you'll notice a huge difference. Like anger, I find, is a really unconscious experience, but grief is a conscious experience, right? And grief comes first, anger comes second. So like when people are just constantly angry or blaming or like projecting or putting it out into someone, they're just like, you're not conscious. When you realize, I'm experiencing this is me, I have the power to change this, I'm hurting, right? Like then it's conscious. And I think like that comes down to that conversation of like limitation, because some people are born at a 2 when it comes to consciousness. They'll just never reach a 10. It's just like not the life that they were born into. And then there's people who have the capacity for a 10 and they're sitting at a 5 and they slowly like get to this place. So I do think it's like the birth lottery as well. Like we won the birth lottery. I say that a lot. I'm like, I won the fucking birth lottery. I live in Canada. Like my problems are like, they're nothing like compared to what's happening, like won the lottery. People are like out here buying lottery tickets. No, you already won. Like you've won, you have everything. So I think it's like, yeah, that too.
Yeah, it was so funny because I was gonna say this that like when I first got back from Italy, there was this one day that was just the worst day of my whole life. I'm just gonna tell you because it was so awful. So my computer broke in Italy on the very first week, and I had planned to work there. I couldn't take the whole month off work. I literally couldn't do anything. I don't have my work email on my phone. I couldn't do anything. Thank God for my team. But so my computer broke. It's brand new computer. Apple MacBook Pro with like all the added shit. Like it was like 5 grand. Brand new. And I was like, no problem. I'm a Virgo. I always get Apple Care. Like I literally always let you know. No
Yeah.
problem. I get back here and I'm like, hey, I need to get back to work. My clients are like pissed at me at this point. And they're like, you don't have Apple Care. And I'm like, that's not possible. Check again. Like, no, you don't have Apple Care. Like, there's nothing we can do for you. Actually, it's cheaper for you to just buy a new computer at this point. And I'm like, what? So I had to brand new computer, had to buy a new computer. I was already like just spent all this money in Italy, like not even sure how I was gonna
Interesting.
like live for this month. I had to buy a new computer, and then I went to the tanning because I was so stressed. I was like, I'm just gonna like go and like get a tan, sit in the like temporary sun. And I felt something on my leg, and I looked down, and a fucking wasp is stinging me. And I was like,
Oh,
I'm terrified of wasps. This is the word. Like she was like, oh, no. I was screaming. The girl like came in, I'm naked, and she was like, is it the bees again? I'm like, you didn't tell me that there were bees in here. Like,
oh my God.
awful. And then I lose my keys to get into my condo and I can't get in. So I'm like sitting here being like, this,
Whoa, it's a
what is going
day.
on astrologically? Okay, blaming the stars. I'm like, this is not me. This is retrograde or whatever.
For
Pluto going
sure.
back into
For sure,
Capricorn,
for sure.
whatever it is. But like, it's not me. And then I just like, I was so angry. I can't even tell you. And then I sat with it, obviously, finally got into the condo, like setting up my new computer. And I'm like, wow, these are not no problems, Jordana, at all. Like it's just, and it just felt like the worst day ever. And it felt like
Yeah, of
nothing was going to go my
course.
way. And how was I going to, this was my rent money and da da da. And like,
Of
and then,
course.
but you know, when you really actually sit into like, okay, so like, let's say like we get kicked out of our house, like, okay, like, am I supported? Am I going to be able to figure it out? Like you go kind of go
100%.
into that, right? Like I trust, I just trust, I surrender. You have to.
There's no other option. There's no other option. And like I do find when I did something amazing come out of it like a week or 2 weeks later, because I find like whenever I have those
I'm
really,
so waiting for that.
yeah, 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 it'll come. It'll come. But it's funny,
Yeah.
Pluto and Capricorn business, like it's just funny that
Yeah. It
that
was,
happened.
yeah, I was not happy. But actually, no, actually something very wonderful really came out of it because it sparked a conversation with one of my mentors and she like really made me get back in my authority that I was just like
Yeah.
putting it all up in all these areas. So I had to have some tough conversations and now I'm feeling great. And so
Yes. Yeah, totally. Like I think whenever that stuff happens, it's always about contrast and teaching us about the ego and like I mean, it's the worst feeling ever, but it's also how God reminds you that like it's also how God reminds you that miracles are like possible all the time, right? Because it's just like you just realize everything is fine after it. And I think like these things have to happen to us to understand our capacity of like tolerance,
totally
right?
nothing
Because like
happens right now.
yeah, like that's what I love about like studying this text is you kind of start to feel untouchable because it's like whatever happens to me, like I'm so good. Like I'm protected, I'm guided, I'm supported, I'm loved, and like everything's gonna be great. Everything's fine. Like and you just start to feel like this sort of untouchable of like, okay, cool. Like let's roll with it because you're doing it to either teach me or you're doing it to level me up or you're doing it to show me something. So I'm like, all right, like let's go with it. And I'm yeah, like I'm willing to feel it and I know you're gonna make it better. So it's like fun. It becomes like the game of life.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I want you to like sit with me for a day and just like,
Yeah.
I just want to be in your head for a
Oh my
moment.
gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like yeah, it's a mental game for sure. But it's
Yeah.
fun. Like life is really fun.
I love that. Okay, well, this was a lovely conversation.
Yeah.
So grateful for you coming on and sharing all of your wisdom. I personally have had a birth chart, or not birth chart, yeah, birth chart, like
Oh, you're right.
astrological reading with you,
Yeah.
and it was bang fucking on and wonderful, and just like totally changed my outlook. Even though like I do this stuff all the time, it was
Yeah.
also your ability to like sit there and download and read me and like see what
Yeah.
that meant, and it was just amazing. So I know my community would love to hear where we can find you, where we can book sessions with you.
Yeah, that's so sweet. It's so funny because my ego mind really came in after that reading because like I read your chart and I was like, wow, this woman's such a powerhouse. And then after the reading, I was like, she hated it. Like my whole ego was like,
No, I
my
left and
ego.
I was like, I am the most powerful woman in the world, and everything is going to be fine.
Yes, that makes
Like,
me
I
so
am
happy.
literally born into power.
Yes, I love that so much. It makes me so happy. Yeah, so Oracle City Studios is my Instagram, and within my Instagram, there's a link. You can take a look. You can book readings. I'm like slowly creating new programs and new things, but that's literally the easiest way. And DM me. Like I think simplifying it, having sort of like one channel is super super helpful. So Oracle City Studios on Instagram. DM me, send me any message, engage with my stories. Go to the link in my bio. You can book a reading there. I'm planning on doing more moon ceremonies and really focusing on all my teaching. And like I said, I'm like allowing it to build until October 11th. And then I think once like October comes, I'll be a bit clearer. But yeah, Oracle City Studios.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And I did my reading from Italy. So if you're listening
Yeah.
in other
You
countries,
can do it from wherever you want.
wherever you want.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so, so much for
No,
coming
I
on.
appreciate you.
I appreciate you.
Yes. Have the best day and be
Oh,
well.
you too.
Thank-
Sending peace, and hopefully it'll come back to me too then.
Absolutely. You already are. It's already there. It's all there.
Okay, guys, if you like this episode, don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll put all of the links in the show notes, and I will see you back on another episode of the Mindful Method podcast. Bye.